Imagine a wealthy businessman coldly evicting his own mother from the apartment. But everything changes when he reads a letter and sees a photo. Beverly, a 60-year-old woman, stares intently at the letter she just received in the mail. She recognizes the letterhead in the upper left corner from the real estate company. A feeling of panic begins to form in her chest. Slowly and carefully, she slides her finger to open the envelope, dreading what she will find inside. The letter is brief, direct, and cruel. She reads the bold words that leap from the page like a direct blow. Eviction notice. Her heart tightens, and her eyes begin to blur with unshed tears. The pain of reality hits hard. She has exactly 30 days to vacate the place she has called home for nearly 3 decades. Beverly holds the letter against her chest, feeling the cold paper in contrast to the warmth of her skin. The thought of losing her home, the place where her memories with her never-forgotten son still live, is overwhelming. Every corner of that place has a story, every piece of furniture, a memory. The difficult decision she made so many years ago, when she was still young, now seems to resurface, mocking her. The sacrifice she made, believing she was giving her son a better life, now leaves her helpless, at a crossroads with no way out. Feelings of regret and guilt flood her mind. Trying to calm herself, she gets up and makes a cup of tea. The comforting aroma of the hot drink fills the kitchen, bringing a moment of peace amid the chaos that now threatens her existence. Sitting at the table, she watches the bustling streets through the window. People hurry by, each with their own worries, unaware of the internal storm Beverly is facing. Determined to find a solution, Beverly decides she will seek help from the city's social services. Perhaps, just maybe, there is a way out, some assistance that can alleviate her situation. She puts on her worn-out coat, grabs her purse, and leaves the house, trying to find strength in each step she takes on the familiar sidewalk. Upon arriving at the social services office, Beverly is greeted by an environment filled with incessant voices and movements, a labyrinth of bureaucracy. The blue plastic chairs are occupied by tired faces, all waiting for assistance, all with their own stories and urgent needs. Beverly approaches the reception, where a young employee types quickly on the computer, not taking her eyes off the screen. With a sigh, Beverly explains her situation, her voice trembling with anxiety and concern. The employee finally looks at her, with a vague and disinterested look. The responses are automatic, as if she has said them a million times before. Fill out this form. Wait your turn. We will assess your situation. Beverly accepts the paper handed to her, her hopes growing fainter by the minute. She sits in one of the blue chairs, trying to focus on the questions in the form. She feels small, invisible amidst the system that is supposed to help those in despair. Each question on the paper seems to amplify her bleak reality. How many dependents? None. Monthly income? Insufficient. Ability to pay rent? Non-existent. The room is full of stories, but Beverly can't help but feel that hers is the loneliest of all. Her mind wanders, and she thinks of the son she gave up for adoption, hoping he is well, that her choice at least provided him a better life than what she could offer. Time passes slowly, each minute an eternity. Finally, her name is called. She is led into a small room where a social worker awaits with a tired but kind look. Beverly explains her situation again, trying to convey the urgency and desperation she feels. The assistant listens attentively, but in the end, the result is predictable. There is not much they can do unless Beverly meets specific criteria she cannot fulfill. Desolate, Beverly thanks the assistant and leaves the room. The reality is relentless. The help she hoped for will not come easily. The house where Beverly lives is more than just a shelter. It is a place filled with memories. The walls have witnessed laughter and tears, moments of happiness and despair. It is her sanctuary, and the thought of losing it is unbearable. Every day, Beverly tries to find ways to pay the rent, but her options are limited, and time is running out. She does odd jobs, cleans houses, and sews clothes, but it never seems to be enough. Beverly doesn't know that fate is about to intervene in ways she could never imagine. Her son, the one she lost so long ago to adoption, is closer than she thinks, living a life of luxury and success, unaware of his own roots. Soon, Beverly and Quincy's paths will cross again, bringing to light secrets that will change their lives forever. Quincy starts his day in his luxurious apartment, located in the heart of the city. He wakes up to the sound of the alarm on his sophisticated wristwatch, gets out of his king-sized bed, and opens the curtains to the panoramic view of the gleaming skyscrapers. As he descends to the kitchen, Quincy finds the breakfast table already set. A silent maid, who attends to him efficiently, has prepared a selection of fresh fruits, bread, and aromatic coffee. He reviews his schedule for the day on his tablet while sipping his coffee, coordinating his appointments and meetings. The sense of absolute control comforts him. However, behind this facade of perfection, there is a side of Quincy that rarely shows itself to the world. A part of him that sometimes questions what really matters amid all the luxury. But these thoughts are quickly stifled by the pressure of work and the expectations of his adoptive family. Quincy learned early on that success is everything, and he has dedicated his life to achieving more than his adoptive parents could have dreamed for him. The Kingstons, his adoptive family, raised him in an imposing mansion where love was shown in the form of expensive gifts and limitless opportunities. They taught him that he could be anything he wanted, as long as he followed the rules of the elite. Quincy always believed that his place in the world was guaranteed, a throne he merely had to claim. And he did, rapidly climbing the corporate ladder, impressing everyone with his intelligence and determination. However, Quincy is entirely unaware of his roots. He has never questioned the story of his adoption. In fact, he rarely thinks about it. To him, his adoptive parents are his only family, the only people that matter. There is no room to question a past that was never part of his reality. It's as if he was born into the Kingston family, always destined to tread the path of success. On the way to the office, Quincy is accompanied by his private driver in a luxury car. He watches the city streets through the window, people coming and going in their daily lives. To him, these scenes are like a movie, distant and unreal. He has no idea that his biological mother, Beverly, walks those same streets, struggling to survive, living a reality so different from his. Their worlds, though so physically close, seem to be in completely distinct universes. Arriving at the mirrored building that houses his company, Quincy is greeted by employees who admire him. He walks through the corridors like a king in his castle, oblivious to the fact that somewhere in the shadows of the city, a gray-haired woman worries daily about bills she cannot pay. During meetings, he discusses large sums of money as if they were numbers on a board, an abstraction that does not reflect the true weight money has for those who do not possess his fortune. The decisions he makes impact hundreds of lives, but he has become so accustomed to this responsibility that he has grown insensitive to it. For Quincy, the business world is a game he knows how to play well, and he does not think about changing his strategies. However, Quincy's life is about to take an unexpected turn. Fate has plans he cannot foresee, and the meeting with his biological mother will be the catalyst that changes everything he thought he knew about himself. The pieces of the puzzle are beginning to move, setting the stage for a revelation that will transform his perspectives. On a sunny Monday morning, Quincy is focused on a new venture. He recently acquired a set of properties in a promising area of the city, a strategic decision that promises to further increase his already vast fortune. He sees this as just another step in his relentless climb to the top of the business world. For him, numbers and properties are merely pieces of a financial puzzle, an equation he must solve to ensure his continued success. His gaze shifts to a light brown folder on the table, containing detailed reports on the newly acquired properties. Calmly, Quincy begins to examine each document, scanning through the occupancy numbers, rental rates, and of course, the late payments. One column in particular catches his attention: the list of delinquent tenants. His keen business instinct immediately perceives the potential for loss, something he is unwilling to tolerate. Determined to optimize his investments, Quincy decides to make a personal visit to the properties. He believes that nothing can replace first-hand knowledge of the situation, even if it means spending a bit of his precious time outside the office. Arriving at the building where Beverly lives, Quincy observes the old structure with a mix of interest and criticism. To him, it is merely an asset that needs to be restructured to maximize its value. He walks through the place with determined steps, inspecting every detail, mentally calculating the necessary renovations. The corridors are narrow, the walls worn down by time. The whispers of life in the apartments are almost inaudible, lost within the concrete walls. As he walks, Quincy has no idea that one of the people he considers just a number is, in fact, his biological mother. He is oblivious to the fact that the elderly woman in one of the apartments he deems dispensable shares the same blood. To him, this is just another business to be adjusted, another profit opportunity. In his mind, the process is simple. Tenants who do not pay must leave so that new ones can enter. He instructs his lawyers to expedite the evictions, viewing this as a standard procedure. Quincy has never been one to let emotion interfere with his decisions, especially when it comes to business. He believes that success is synonymous with detachment, with making cold and rational decisions. The irony of this imminent encounter is that it is driven by a series of coincidences that neither Beverly nor Quincy could foresee. While Beverly struggles to find a way to keep her home, Quincy proceeds with his plan for real estate restructuring. Fate, however, seems to have its own plans, slowly weaving the threads of their lives toward an inevitable collision point. Quincy continues his inspection, his mind focused on how to transform that old building into a symbol of modernity and profitability. He envisions a prosperous future with remodeled apartments and higher rent, attracting a new class of tenants. His lawyers, efficient as always, are already preparing the necessary paperwork to remove those who cannot pay. As Quincy leaves the building, satisfied with the progress, he is still unaware of the emotional storm he is about to unleash. For him, this is just another day at work, another task accomplished for success. The possibility that his own life story might be rewritten by his actions in that building never crosses his mind. Outside, Quincy casts one last glance at the building, aware that it will soon become a valuable part of his portfolio. He gets into his luxury car, completely ignoring the lives that are about to be impacted by his calculated decisions. The next morning, Beverly wakes up earlier than usual, her mind filled with anxious thoughts. She spent the night tossing and turning in bed, worried about the looming eviction threat. Despite her exhaustion, Beverly gets up determined to make one last attempt to save her home. She believes that if she can speak directly with the landlord, perhaps he might take pity and offer some solution to her predicament. With trembling hands, Beverly puts on her worn coat and gathers her hair into a messy bun. She takes a deep breath in front of the mirror, trying to calm her racing heart. "Today is the day," she murmurs to herself, with a wavering resolve. Across the city, Quincy is also preparing for his day. He has a clear list of tasks to complete, and the property inspection is just one item among many. As Quincy arrives at the building, he is greeted by a real estate agent who handles the technical details. They quickly discuss occupancy rates, and Quincy asks direct questions about the delinquent tenants. He has no time for pleasantries. His schedule is tight, and he wants to resolve everything as quickly as possible. His mind is focused on maximizing the return on investment, and the personal stories of the residents are merely background noise. However, as Quincy steps into the building, his footsteps echoing through the worn corridor, he fails to notice that fate is already setting up a crucial encounter. Beverly is in the lobby, nervously talking to the building manager. She tries to explain her situation, the urgency in her voice crystal clear. "Please, I just need more time. I'm looking for a job and promise I will pay as soon as I can," Beverly pleads, her voice choked with a mix of desperation and hope. At that exact moment, Quincy, with his confident posture and indifferent gaze, approaches the scene. He is busy reviewing papers on his tablet, oblivious to the drama unfolding before him. Beverly catches a glimpse of him, and something in his presence makes her pause. There is a strange familiarity in his face, something she cannot quite place. Her heart skips a beat, as if recognizing a forgotten fragment of her past. She watches Quincy for a moment, hesitating. There is an aura of power and confidence about him, something that makes Beverly feel insignificant by comparison. Yet, she clings to her courage and steps forward, trying to catch his attention. "Excuse me, sir," Beverly says, her voice filled with urgency. Quincy lifts his eyes from his papers, a curious but impatient look crossing his face. To him, Beverly is just another tenant with problems, someone to be treated as an obstacle to be removed. "Yes, how can I help?" Quincy replies, his voice polite but distant. Beverly swallows hard, gathering all her determination. She tries to explain her situation again, her words coming out in a rushed flow of need. "I've been here for years, and I've always paid on time. I just need one more month to sort this out." Quincy listens, but his interest quickly wanes. He sees only numbers and contracts, not people and stories. He has heard similar excuses before, and has learned that becoming emotionally involved in business is a weakness. He furrows his brow slightly, trying to be polite but already decided in his approach. "I'm sorry, but the rules are clear. I can't make exceptions," he replies, his eyes quickly returning to the tablet. Beverly feels a wave of frustration and helplessness wash over her. It's as if her words haven't reached Quincy, as if she's speaking to a wall. The way he dismisses her situation hits her with a crushing force. The hopes she had of finding a solution begin to crumble. Quincy turns, ready to continue his inspection. Beverly stands still, watching Quincy walk away. For her, this is a moment of desperation, a lost battle against the inevitable. Quincy exits into the hallway, his focus already shifting to the next task. He does not realize that he has left behind a woman who, in an inexplicable way, has already been a part of his life, even though he does not know it. Beverly takes a deep breath and tries to gather the courage needed to continue her plea. She looks at Quincy, who is now checking his watch, visibly impatient. With each passing second, Beverly's urgency increases, as she knows this might be her last chance to keep her home. "Sir, please," she begins, her voice trembling with a mix of desperation and hope. "This house is all I have. I've lived here for so many years, created my memories here. This is the only place I can call home. And more than that, I've always dreamed of having a united family. It's hard to imagine that now I'm going to lose everything." Quincy, with his stern features and firm posture, listens only to the first few words before losing interest. "Look, I understand this is difficult for you," Quincy responds with a tone he believes is diplomatic but sounds empty and indifferent. "But decisions have been made, and I can't make exceptions. I have a job to do, and I need to keep the properties profitable. I'm sorry, but I can't help." Beverly feels as if she has been struck. She senses her hope fading, but she tries one last time, desperate to reach some empathy within him. "Please, sir, I just need one more month. I don't have anywhere else to go. I've always paid on time until now, and I'm just going through a rough patch. It's not much time. Unfortunately, I can't do anything for you," he says, his patience beginning to wear thin. "The lawyers have been informed and will proceed with the eviction." Beverly feels the ground slip away from beneath her. Quincy's words cut deep, like sharp blades, eliminating any hope that remained. She tries to hold herself together, but tears start streaming down her face. The reality of losing the only home she knows hits her like a violent tide, leaving her feeling utterly helpless. Quincy, noticing Beverly's expression, hesitates for a brief moment, but he suppresses any trace of doubt and quickly regains his professional demeanor. For him, the situation has been resolved, and there is nothing more to be said. With a cold nod of his head, he turns and walks away, already thinking about his next meeting and the important decisions he needs to make. Beverly watches Quincy leave, feeling even more isolated than before. She wants to scream, run after him, make him understand the pain he is causing. But the words stick in her throat, and she stands there, watching him disappear through the door. As he exits the building, Beverly whispers a silent prayer, asking for the strength to face what comes next, still unaware that the man who has just ordered her eviction is the same son she lost so many years ago. The next morning, with a heavy heart, Beverly picks up her old phone and starts dialing familiar numbers. First, she calls Agnes, a longtime friend who lives across town. "Agnes, dear, I'm in trouble," Beverly begins, trying to keep her voice steady. But on the other end of the line, Agnes's response is a weary sigh. "I wish I could help, Bev, but things are tough here too. I hope you find a solution." Beverly continues, calling other friends and even neighbors she has known for years. However, the responses are always the same: apologies and condolences. The words of comfort do little to alleviate the feeling that the world is closing its doors on her. With each failed attempt, reality hits harder. Beverly thinks about how her life has taken such a cruel turn, reflecting on how things could have been different if she had managed to raise her child, if she had had the chance to give him the love and protection she always dreamed of. The decision, which seemed like the only way out at the time, now weighs on her like an unbearable burden. She slowly gets up and walks to the small altar in her living room, where she keeps old photographs and precious mementos. Among the photos, an image of her child as a baby, with bright eyes and an innocent smile, seems to be looking at her. "If only you knew, my child," Beverly whispers, gently caressing the photo frame with trembling fingers. The pain in her heart is intense, as if life is taking from her everything that has ever mattered. Beverly is in a state of deep despair. Determined to find out something, she decides to visit the orphanage where her child was left so many years ago. With her heart racing, she makes her way to the old building, now a bitter reminder of her past choices. She enters the orphanage and is greeted by a middle-aged staff member, who looks at her with curiosity and a touch of sympathy. Beverly introduces herself and explains that she is looking for information about her child. The staff member leads her to a file room, filled with folders and aged documents. "I can't guarantee we'll find anything," she says with a cautious tone, "but we'll do our best." With trembling hands, Beverly starts to sift through the folders, desperately searching for any clue. Time seems to drag, and each revealed document brings a wave of emotions: sadness, hope, guilt. Finally, the staff member finds a folder with information about an adopted child, whose name she reveals with a mixture of surprise and respect. Here it is: Quincy Harris. He was adopted by a wealthy family and became a successful man. When Beverly hears the name, Quincy Harris, her world seems to collapse. She feels a deep shock, a mixture of disbelief and pain. The name is both familiar and strange at the same time. Her child, who grew up in a luxurious environment, is now a successful executive, someone who never knew his past or the woman who gave him life. Her mind travels back to the day she gave up the baby, with tears streaming down her face as she did so, believing she was making the best decision for him. She sits in the chair, the folder of documents open in front of her, and tries to process the information. The feeling of betrayal and regret is overwhelming. Quincy's life is far removed from hers, filled with comfort and achievements, while she struggles to keep a roof over her head. The contrast between their lives is painful and unfair. Beverly tries to picture Quincy's face, now a successful man, and wonders what it would be like if he knew the truth. What if he knew how much she loved him and how she thought about him all these years? The thought of reaching out to Quincy is terrifying. What would she say? How would she approach a man who never knew she existed? And if he rejected her? The fear of the unknown paralyzes her, but the need for connection, for a lost bond, is overwhelming. Quincy's life is immersed in routine and success. He is the typical executive, constantly rushing between meetings and negotiations. But today, something unexpected happens. He is having lunch at a sophisticated restaurant with a longtime friend, James, when the conversation takes an unexpected turn. James, with a casual smile, mentions, "Did you know your biological parents could be out there somewhere? I don't know if I've told you, but you were adopted." Quincy, who has always heard this superficially, doesn't think much of the comment at the time. He laughs nervously and says, "Yes, I know. My adoptive parents have always been everything I needed." However, throughout the afternoon, James's words begin to resonate in his mind. Quincy tries to focus on work, but the images of his past, which were once just vague memories, now start to take shape. He had never thought much about his biological parents. After all, he had a good life, filled with comfort and opportunities, thanks to his adoptive family. But doubts begin to set in. He starts to question, who were these people who brought him into the world? Why did they give him up for adoption? Was it a desperate situation? He had never considered these questions before, always focused on his career and personal achievements. Now, however, these questions begin to haunt him. He finds himself revisiting old photos, sifting through albums, and recalling scattered conversations about his adoption. The faces of his adoptive parents, which have always been clear and present in his memory, contrast with the haziness of his biological parents. The discomfort he feels is palpable, a sense of emptiness and a growing curiosity that unsettles him. Quincy starts to wonder if, by meeting his biological parents, he would find a deeper sense of his own identity. He imagines what it would be like to meet someone who shares his blood, his characteristics, his more subtle traits. Quincy decides to seek more information, not knowing that his search is about to intersect with Beverly's fate. He searches online, talks to lawyers, and explores old files, hoping to find some clue that will help him understand who his biological parents are and why they were forced to separate from him. Deep down, he hopes that these answers will bring some form of clarity and closure, even though he does not yet realize the profound impact this will have on his life and Beverly's. As night falls, Beverly is at home, surrounded by old boxes she's trying to organize. As she reviews one of the crates, she finds an old photo album covered in a thin layer of dust. The album looks fragile, but Beverly opens it carefully, her heart pounding. She turns the pages slowly, her hands trembling slightly as she touches each time-worn photo. The album reveals a world from the past, pictures of a happier time when she was young and full of hope. There are photos of her holding a baby, with sincere smiles and a joy that now feels so distant. Beverly stops at a specific photo. She is holding her baby, still an infant, with an expression of unconditional love. Memories from that time, the pain of separation, and the hope that he would have a better life return with force. With tears in her eyes, Beverly decides that she needs to try once more. She selects one of the photos and places it in an envelope, along with a handwritten letter. The letter is a desperate attempt to explain everything. She writes about her unconditional love, the suffering of separation, and how her life has become a maze of difficulties. She mentions her hope that someday he might understand the sacrifice she made and somehow alleviate the situation she is facing now. The letter is personal, full of emotion and pain. Beverly carefully addresses the envelope and sends it to Quincy's address via mail. She watches as the envelope is taken away, imagining Quincy receiving the letter, feeling the connection she still holds with him despite the years and hardships. Time passes, and Quincy, immersed in his relentless work, finally receives the letter and the photo. He is at his desk, surrounded by papers and phone calls, when the envelope arrives. Without paying much attention, he tears open the envelope and finds the photo and letter. The fatigue of the day causes him to take only a quick glance, not noticing the emotional depth the photo and words carry. Quincy sees the photo and letter as something that doesn't fit into his fast-paced world. He places the envelope in a pile of unopened mail, thinking it's just another insignificant piece of correspondence. The photo and letter are left aside, abandoned among documents and reports. Back at home, Beverly anxiously waits for a response, but the days pass and nothing comes. The expectation of a reply, of a connection, begins to turn into a shadow of doubt. On a quiet day, away from the hustle of business, Quincy comes across the envelope again while organizing his desk. The intense routine and the pile of papers cannot conceal the letter that was left behind. He holds it between his fingers, his heart beating slightly faster than usual. It's an unexpected pause in his day, and he decides to finally open the envelope with more attention. The photo falls onto the desk first, and Quincy observes it with an intrigued gaze. The image captures a young woman holding a baby in her arms, with a look of tenderness and hope on her face. Quincy examines the photo more closely, and something in her expression starts to echo in his thoughts. The woman in the photo has a countenance that he cannot ignore, something that resonates with a sense of familiarity he cannot identify. He sets the photo aside and begins to read the letter. Beverly's words are sincere and laden with emotion. She speaks of the love she felt for him, the painful sacrifice of giving him up for adoption, and the difficult life she has faced since then. Quincy reads the words with growing confusion and unease. Each line of the letter seems to touch a part of his heart he didn't know existed. The pain and hope expressed by Beverly make him question his own life and origins. As he reads, Quincy feels a lump in his throat. The image of the woman with the baby, the words full of pain and hope, and the disturbing thought that this woman might be his biological mother, do not leave his mind. The indifference he had shown to Beverly now turns into a growing sense of guilt. He wonders if the disregard with which he treated her might have been a colossal mistake. The idea that the woman he treated coldly is someone so deeply connected to him begins to disturb him in ways he cannot ignore. Quincy decides to investigate further. He rises from the desk, still holding the letter and photo, and begins to search for adoption records and information, revisiting old documents and trying to piece together the puzzle. Now the need to understand more about his past becomes an obsession. He decides to hire a private investigator, a drastic measure for someone who has always trusted numbers more than emotions. The investigator starts digging through old records and interviewing people who might have any connection to Quincy's past. The investigator uncovers information about Beverly, a woman who, throughout her life, faced hardships and made tough decisions. He discovers that Beverly was forced to give Quincy up for adoption due to a desperate financial situation and a lack of support, a harsh reality she tried to conceal with courage and determination. As Quincy reads the reports, he learns that Beverly lived a life marked by continuous struggles and losses. Stories about how she fought to survive and how fate was relentless towards her make Quincy feel a lump in his throat. The image of the woman in distress, now known to be his mother, becomes an emotional burden he cannot ignore. Guilt starts to consume Quincy, becoming a constant shadow in his thoughts. He questions how he could have been so insensitive, how he failed to see the humanity behind the transactions he managed. The reality that his biological mother endured so much suffering while he lived a life of luxury and comfort is a harsh truth he must face. Quincy also feels sadness upon realizing that he lost the opportunity to meet Beverly, to understand her story, and perhaps to be part of a family bond that was broken by cruel circumstances. He tries to imagine the pain and sacrifice his mother had to endure and how it affected his own life. The despair and anguish he felt when reading the letter are now amplified by the revelation of Beverly's struggles. Determined to seek forgiveness and reconnect with his biological mother, Quincy decides to visit the temporary shelter where Beverly now lives. Arriving at the modest building, Quincy faces the stark reality of Beverly's situation. He looks for her, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and apprehension. When he finds her, Beverly is in one of the common areas, sitting alone with an expression that reflects deep fatigue. Their eyes meet, and Quincy almost hesitates, but something within him pushes him forward. He approaches with a heavy heart, feeling tears welling up, and admits to Beverly that, after learning the truth about her and her situation, he is deeply remorseful. He expresses his pain over how he treated her, and reveals that he never imagined that the woman he evicted was his mother. His words come out in a flow of sincerity and desperation. Beverly listens in silence, her expression shifting from surprise to raw, deep emotion. When Quincy asks for forgiveness, her tears fall, blending with both pain and joy. The shame and regret in Quincy are palpable, and the weight of his words reverberates throughout the shelter. In a gesture that is both impulsive and wordless, Beverly stands and embraces him. The hug is a release of repressed emotions, a mix of old pain and unexpected relief. Beverly feels the warmth of Quincy's body and the familiar touch of her son. It's a moment suspended in time, a small miracle that makes her feel that, finally, she has found a piece of what she had lost. Quincy, enveloped in Beverly's embrace, feels a relief mixed with profound sadness. He realizes how broken the bond he had tried to ignore for so long was. He is grateful for the chance to repair a part of his past, but he is also devastated by the reality of the scars that still remain. The ensuing conversation is a tangled web of questions and answers. Beverly, despite her broken heart, tries to explain the suffering she endured and how her life unfolded since the moment she had to part with Quincy. Each of Beverly's words carries the weight of years of struggle and unspoken love. Quincy listens attentively, his heart heavy with the knowledge of the hardships Beverly faced. He is confronted with the reality that his success and comfort came at the cost of an immense personal sacrifice. With tears in his eyes, Quincy finally feels he has found a way to redeem his mistakes and reconnect with his past. He decides to bring Beverly to live with him in his home, an elegant mansion that once seemed like nothing more than a symbol of empty success. Now, he wants this home to represent something more meaningful, a chance to start anew with his biological mother. The move is a mix of emotions for Beverly. She leaves the temporary shelter, where she spent weeks adjusting to a new reality, and enters Quincy's home with a sense of relief and also apprehension. The mansion is grand and unlike anything she has ever known, but the true meaning of her move goes beyond the luxurious walls. It is the beginning of a new chapter in her life, where she can finally be with her son. Quincy goes out of his way to ensure Beverly feels comfortable. He surrounds her with a series of care and gestures he could never have imagined doing before. He sets up a cozy room for her and tries to learn about the small things that make Beverly feel at home. The affection he shows is a reflection of his desire to mend the past, and he dedicates time to truly getting to know her. Beverly, in turn, finds comfort in Quincy's presence. After years of struggle and pain, she feels a wave of peace knowing her son is by her side. Memories of a painful past begin to dissolve into a present that, despite its challenges, offers new hope. She observes her son's transformation with a mix of pride and a touch of sadness, aware of all that might have been, but also grateful for what is to come. The following days are devoted to rebuilding a relationship interrupted by so many decades. Quincy and Beverly spend time together, sharing stories and experiences. The conversations are gentle and hopeful as they talk about plans for the coming weeks, like exploring the city together or fulfilling small dreams they had set aside. Beverly feels she has finally found a place where she can feel loved and safe. Quincy, in turn, experiences a sense of fulfillment seeing his mother happy and at ease. And you, what would you have done in Beverly's place? Would you have sought out the child you had to put up for adoption due to circumstances beyond your control? Let me know in the comments. Stay tuned for more emotional stories.